The first thing we're going to look at here is just what is already happening. What's already happening in any time, in any place, any experience we have has certain components. And we can let those components master us, or we can become masters of those aspects of our experience. And the first experience we're going to talk about is our stories and projections. We have a storytelling mind. It doesn't stop. It'll never stop. That's what the mind does. If we cultivate a deep meditation practice, we can enter states of awareness where the mind is not as active, and at the very least, we're not as invested in all of those thoughts. We're kind of just watching them. We're watching the stories play out. So meditation practice, if you don't have one, of course, is a very powerful way to resource yourself and help you to get a little distance from the storytelling mind, right? We're not going to get away from stories, but we can learn how to identify them as stories and say, instead of "you don't love me" or "you don't care about me," to say, "I'm telling myself a story right now that you don't care about me." Right? We're owning that it's a story in our minds. And so that's what mastery looks like in terms of this level of our awareness, is recognizing a story as a story and being able to name that this story is happening and express it. Now, the second thing that's always already happening in our experience is we have all this data coming in through our senses, what we see with our eyes, what we hear with our ears, what we sense in our bodies, what we are smelling and tasting. We have these senses that are taking in data all the time. We call those facts. Those are the observables. And we can either mix up our facts with our stories and think that our stories are facts, or we can start to gain mastery and start to recognize what the observable is, what the shared reality fact, what the camera would catch or the audio recorder would record, and the stories that we make up about them, or the meaning that we create about them. So stories and observable data are happening all the time. The third thing that's happening all the time is our emotions. We're having feelings. Yes, even you too, men. We are always having some kind of emotional experience. We are trained not to look at that or value that information in our nervous system, whether we're men or women, but especially as men. And the important thing to recognize is that that is having a huge impact on our choices and behaviors at all times. And if we're not aware of our emotional experience, then we're being mastered by it. If we are attentive to, if we're noticing what's happening emotionally for us, and we're able to name that and express that, even if we don't know why, we can just name that, wow, I'm feeling scared right now, or I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm feeling joyful. Then we start stepping towards mastery, because when we can look directly at our emotions and express our emotions, taking ownership for them and not blaming them on other people, then we're moving into mastery around the emotional level of our reality. But remember, there is no time where there's not some emotional layer of your experience to be tuned into if you're willing to explore. The fourth thing that's always already happening is our needs. We are constantly responding to a universal set of human needs hardwired into the human body. And it doesn't matter where you're from, we all have the same basic universal human needs. Some of them are survival level needs, and many of them are thriving level needs. And when we are unaware of the needs that we're trying to meet in any given moment, especially if there's charge, if there's some kind of trigger happening, then we can get really stuck in our strategies and forget about the actual need that's there. When we forget that other people are just doing their best in every given moment to meet their precious universal human needs, then we can lose track of our capacity for compassion, for understanding. And so being mastered by our needs is just being pushed around unaware of what we actually need. Things like connection, belonging, care, empathy, intimacy, sexual expression. These are all universal human needs. The more aware of these needs we become, the better we become at meeting them for ourselves and to just embracing them for others and our partners. And the fifth thing that's always already happening is that we are making choices. We're using our power in some way. We are constantly making choices. Many of those choices are below the level of conscious awareness. We're making unconscious choices. And many of those choices are conscious. There's a very sort of wide spectrum between conscious and unconscious choices. But we have to acknowledge that we're always making choices. And when we own that these are choices that we're making about our life, and we get away from our sort of victim bullshit, I have to do this, I'm stuck doing this, or we bring a lot of the unconscious choices and agreements that we've made into consciousness so that we can make conscious choices, then we're winning. We're creating a much more stable basis to get our needs met and to collaborate with other people. So we're going to be learning tools to address all of the ways that we can get off the rails with these different layers of our experience. But fundamentally, we have to ask ourselves, do I want to be mastered by my stories and my observations and my feelings and my needs and my choices, or do I want to step into mastery of them? And the more we practice these very simple practical tools, the more we're going to step into that mastery.